Heavy Cardboard, Episode 33, Masters of Venice. Coming to you from Denver, Colorado on International Podcast Day. Woo. Welcome to Heavy Cardboard, where we talk medium-heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx, and other related topics in the board gaming hobby. We're your hosts. I'm Edward.
This is Tony. So, Edward, tell everybody how to contact Heavy Cardboard, please.
Well, you can pretty much find us on the web by searching Heavy Cardboard. That sums it up instead of going piece by piece. Our BGG guild number is 2044. We'd love to have you over there. So come check us out over on the Board Game Geek Guild.
One other thing to check out, of course, is GameSurplus.com, our fabulous sponsor. They have a lot of imported games, hard-to-find games, and they can find anything you're looking for. So reach out to Velma. You can reach them at games@gamesurplus.com and visit their site, www.gamesurplus.com. And speaking of Game Surplus, Edward, what's our giveaway?
Yeah, we keep threatening to give something away, and we keep forgetting, to be honest. So we decided, okay, hey, with Essen right around the corner, let's do it real simple. Email us at contest@heavycardboard.com, and all you have to do is tell us the 3 games that you're most excited about and why. Don't just give us 3 words, the names. Give us a little oomph, and we'll pick one at random. Probably next episode. Yeah, we'll pick it next episode. That's fine. And the winner will get a $40 gift card or a gift certificate for Game Surplus that you can use on, hopefully, one of those games.
You betcha.
So, again, contest@heavycardboard.com. Top 3 games, and give us some reasons why. International Podcast Day, huh?
Yeah, man.
That's a thing I just learned about. Seems apropos to be recording today, as it turns out, I guess. Huh?
It does. Good thing you were sick.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Not.
So, no, this episode's a bit of an odd duck. I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday, putting it out tomorrow. Normally, we record on a Monday. The games we're reviewing all have a bit of an odd duck feel to them, or quirky. So there's just kind of
2 Martin Wallaces in here, so that equals quirky.
Sure. Just a bit of a strange feel to this episode to get started. I'm curious if the listeners feel that it comes across as weird. Hopefully not.
Weirder than normal. Maybe.
Right, no doubt. So if I sound off or I'm coughing or whatever, I apologize because I'm still getting over being sick. It's that time of year. 'Tis the season, if you will. So we got an invitation to the Saskatoon Board Gaming Convention, which I think is cool. It's an invite only. They send somebody over, buy every Essen game, and bring it back, and you can play them.
Yeah,
and it's
cool.
always around Halloween. And unfortunately, too little notice for us to make it this year, but that was cool that somebody invited us. So yay!
Oh, it's very cool.
Mo. Speaking of conventions, HeavyCon. We are considering making it all inclusive with food and everything, but holy cow, is that stuff expensive?
It is. But it would be very much worth it.
I think so. I'm sure there are those
4 days of brain melting.
Yeah, and just sitting there not having to leave.
No splendor.
Yeah, well, not much anyway.
The splendor is in the gaming.
So the Secret Santa, the Heavy Cardboard Secret Santa, or as it's being called, the Heavy Cardboard Secret Elephant. The sign-ups are currently going on over in the guild that I mentioned earlier, 2044 on BGG.
Yep.
If it's something that appeals to you, go have fun with it. And obviously, you and I are both in on it.
Check the rules, because heavy games aren't always cheap, and
right.
We are opening it to international, but you don't have to participate in the international thing. So just check the rules out.
But everybody has LGSs, if not FLGSs, in their country.
That's correct.
So you can usually contact them, email them, and be able to purchase it and save on shipping that way.
You bet.
The only other kind of oddball thing that I have, since we're going with the whole quirky odd duck thing, is I saw that Edward Snowden joined Twitter this week, and he's following one account and one account only.
One account?
Yeah. Any guesses?
FBI?
Close. NSA.
Okay,
I find
okay, there you
really
go.
damn funny.
Yeah, it is.
Regardless of what people think about them, I just found that funny.
Yeah.
That one thing.
That's
so,
cool.
What do you got?
Well, just one thing. I thought Dave Eisen, one of our guild members. And,
I was thinking the guy, the head of Disney. No, not him.
No.
Okay. Eisner. Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
All right, gotcha.
So maybe Dave is the CEO of Disney. I don't know. He's been running a geek list with ratings of all the games that we've been reviewing and everything. And I think it's just really cool.
He finally got around to updating that.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's really cool that seeing other people's opinions and stuff like that is very, very cool. And I'm really interested in his and everyone's opinion in the games we talk about tonight too.
Yeah, I especially kind of a divisive, I think.
Well, if this is an Odd Duck episode, the main game we're going to talk about is definitely an Odd Duck.
Right. Yeah. And so, no, that is cool that Dave's doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad somebody took it upon themselves so I didn't have to go and research what we rated all the games, to be honest.
Well, and he's putting his 1 to 6
No,
on there, too.
I know. Yeah, that's
really, really
I think
cool.
that's cool. Yeah.
Good job, Dave.
So if other people listening are interested, go check that out. We can always link to it in the show notes. So let's get it started. What have you acquired in the last couple of weeks, sir?
I have acquired 5 little things.
5?
5 little things. My own copy of Tinner's Trail. I've enjoyed it so much.
Right.
Steel Driver, because Paul Chad, said it was something. There was something to that game, and I know you guys played it recently, so we'll talk about that soon.
Yep.
I got a copy of The King is Dead, which is the reprint of King of Siam.
King of Siam, exactly.
The little tiny short area control game. Played it with the wife. She liked it.
Rock on.
Medici, like Medici and Ra, I gave them away back in the day when the iPad versions came out and everything. And now I'm like, what the hell did I do that for? So, I've been acquiring them back. So I got the first edition Medici in pristine condition from a user on The Geek. So that was very, very cool.
All right.
And then I did a print and play. I did a print and play of Open Rails Origins.
I've never heard of that. What is it?
This is when you were sick.
Okay.
On Sunday, I was playing with this. I played the solo version.
Oh, that's the one you...
I tweeted you a
okay,
picture, or not tweeted, but texted you a picture of it. So it is a Age of Steam 18AL hybrid, and it's got cubes, not tiles. You can par value stocks, their shares, presidency, city upgrades, train types, auctions, the whole thing. It's only a 1 to 3 player game, and the designer credits Tresham, Wallace, Bohr, Derek, and Galt. So I played the solo.
18XX kind of who's who.
It's all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's there's an interesting abstracted train mechanic, train rush and obsolescence that was kind of neat. And the number of cubes in your corporation, which are stations and tracks and everything, depends on what your par price was. It's got some really neat stuff.
Cool. All right.
And it doesn't play long. It's like 25 minutes a player.
Oh.
And so I took some time and I made a 4-player Colorado map.
I was going to ask, how many does it play? You said you played it solo.
It plays 1 to 3, and then my Colorado map would play up to 4. Because it's just a tad bit bigger, and there's a couple more corporations. All historical Colorado rail corporations, of course.
I love that. That's fantastic.
And 4 private companies. And private companies are something that's not in Open Rails Origins. So, anyway, those are the things I've acquired.
All right,
How about you, man?
Well, the first one is here. It's the Tree Frog version of Automobile.
Sweetness. While you talk, can I open this?
Sure, go for it.
Awesome.
A couple of listeners actually had it for Stephen Canning, one of the guys from HeavyCon. He was selling it, and so I was able to get a copy. So I'm excited about that because I was willing to get rid of my Mayfair edition in our auction because I knew I was going to be getting this. The only bummer, and this was a total oversight on my part.
What?
Is it doesn't have the wooden money. It only has paper money.
I think that was only in the deluxe.
Yeah. So
look at this. It's got the nice wooden cubes for the demand. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's cool. So
that is very nice looking.
To go with the Tree Frog and
nice
War Frog
board
collection. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And maybe it'll be an impetus to get it back to the table since we really enjoy the game.
Exactly.
The only other thing is a brand new game from Tasty Minstrel called Steamworks.
Yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah, I was worried that it might be a little too light. It's a worker placement, but the cool thing about this is you construct your own kind of worker placement spaces and abilities.
And they're machines.
Yeah, and it's just a cool take on worker placement. And from what I've
and we
been
like
told,
worker placement.
From what I've been told, it's Concordia weight. Maybe.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that'll be good. Yeah, I'm excited to at least try it and check it out. I'm sure we'll have a trailer for it soon.
So keep going. What are you hunting, anticipating, etc.?
Well, Essen is, I guess, next week after, something like that. So the games will flow soon.
Well, yeah. I've already prepared the wife.
Good. Mine just knows. Our copies of Food Chain Magnet should arrive by the weekend. So it should be this week, according to Yoris. He sent me an email today. So I'm hoping we can get that played this Saturday.
The price of that express shipment that he mentioned was 260 euros to cut like 5 days off. It was crazy.
That was nuts. So hopefully by this weekend, worst case next weekend. So, start off with what you've been playing, sir.
Well, wait a minute. I'm hunting and anticipating.
Oh, I just assumed it was Essen games, and that was it.
No,
my bad.
So there are Essen games, but there are two things that I bought that are not threshold yet. They're not here yet. So I'm anticipating their arrival.
I love that you've acquired that you've adapted that.
You've made me think that way.
Right.
I ordered 1849 from All Aboard Games. And I got American Rails from Joel Eddy in an auction on BGG.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So looking forward to those two things coming. So playing, obviously we've been playing Masters of Venice and Tinner's Trail a bit.
And Liberte.
The things I've played other than that are Scoville, The King is Dead. Yes, Splendor. Hey.
The kids were over and you played that?
No, I was with the wife. So I said, okay, but it's got to be Strip Splendor.
Oh, okay. No, why not?
Yeah, I'll have to bring that up. Trajan, Le Havre, the Open Rails, and a partial game of Uruk 2 with your bride.
Yeah, it's one of those games to where when it's at the end of the day, you don't need to try and relearn it because it's just not... It's really not a hard game. But
no.
Yeah.
I put it on the auction shelf after that. I'm going to take it off. But that's exactly right. It's like, end of the day, where I'm like...
I need to try it again.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've played it before. We like it.
Yes,
yeah.
we do. To obviously the ones in this episode, but also Arboretum, a ton, Steel Driver, which Steel Driver, just real quick.
Tell me. I want to know.
It's Martin Wallace's Winsome feel game.
Yeah.
I know no better way to describe it.
That's what it looked like.
And that's what it felt like. The ending with set collection was a little weird.
A Martin Wallace game that has a weird ending?
Yeah, right, no doubt.
What?
But anxious to try it again.
Yeah, I'm anxious to try it. I was playing Trajan when you guys were playing that, and I was looking over there longingly saying, I love Trajan.
I was going to say, Trajan's one of your favorites.
I played it 100 times. I'm ready.
Sure. ADD boy. The Grizzled, SNCF, Saturn, The Princess of Machu Picchu played a couple of times. And
ready to put that on the auction shelf?
Actually, it already sold in the virtual flea market. And the last one, and I wanted to take a moment to at least mention, was After the Flood. So this is one of the Martin Wallace Grail games that I got.
You guys were playing this while me, Tone, and Paul Chad were playing Le Havre.
Right.
And we were having fun.
I got to say that I pray that we were playing something wrong because that game was extraordinarily boring.
So when we were playing Le Havre, Paul Chad leans over and whispers, I just heard Amanda say, this is exceedingly boring.
It really was.
We were like, oh no.
We actually only played 2/5 of the game because we were like, I can't imagine doing 3 more rounds of this. So I'm going to actually go back, watch a video, maybe read up on some reviews and see if I just completely butchered something when I taught it, which I hope.
Sure.
Otherwise, number 4 of 1,000 or of 1,500 might be out there for sale soon. So, yeah, that was a bummer. I gotta say that was one where expectations were extremely high, and just wow, that was bad.
Well, that subject of games that whose expectations were not fulfilled by their play, I will ask you about that at the end of our podcast.
Oh, okay.
In a closing segment. So I'm really glad to hear you broach that subject, although I hate that it was a Martin Wallace game that was the topic of that.
And it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, well,
But it'll retain its value.
Safe investment.
But yeah, still, that was a bummer.
Right on.
Let's kick off our trailers with the first of two Martin Wallace games. Our quirky trailers.
Yes.
First one up.
An extended trailer in this case.
Tinner's Trail.
Tinner's Trail, the 2008 release from Martin Wallace and Tree Frog Games, is a 2 to 4 player game that takes about 20 to 25 minutes per player. And I'd been doing some reading about the game on The Geek and stuff, and noticed you had a copy, and I was like, dude, let me take that home and let's figure out how to play it. And we played it a couple of times, and we both liked what we saw and decided we wanted to talk about it in our show. So, what is happening in Tinner's Trail is this. Tinner's Trail is set in the 19th century in Cornwall, England, and over the course of 4 rounds, the players are going to be mining for copper and tin and attempting to sell said copper and tin when the prices are high. To reduce the cost of mining, you can place developments such as ports. They have this thing called an adit, which is really nothing more than a counter mine that's for draining water out of a mine. And, of course, trains to haul in coal and haul out water.
It is Martin Wallace.
It is Martin Wallace. And once you've made your money in one of the 4 rounds in the game, you're going to invest money in external investments, i.e. industries outside of Cornwall, to gain victory points. And that is the way to spend or to earn victory points. You're going to do all these other crazy things and earn money and then spend the money on victory points. The earlier you invest in external investments, the better the return on your investment will be. So, as the 4 rounds go on, the amount of money you spend on your external investments will earn you less victory points, right? So the map is going to start seeded with some tin and copper and water cubes.
Lots and lots of water.
Lots of water. And special dice are rolled to determine how many are going to start in each of the areas. During the turn, you're going to have 10 time points to spend on actions, and each action is going to cost 1 to 3 time. And whoever is furthest back in the amount of time spent is whose turn it is. So that's a common mechanic that we've seen in a couple other games like Kraftwagen and oh my gosh, which is the
Glenmore?
Glenmore, thank you.
And also, apparently, it's in the game Thebes. I'm not familiar with it, but in my research, I read that.
If you're miserly with your time, you're going to have a couple more turns than before other players go. So during the turn, the most important action is building a mine. And however, you can only suggest an area on the board where a mine will be built, and then that area will be put up for auction. So any of the players can actually buy the mine, even though it was my turn and I suggested this area to be bid upon. And it's going to cost 2 time, but here's what's kind of neat about it is the person that wins the auction is the one who spent the 2 time. So there's some games that can be played with that. The cost to mine ore is always going to be 1 pound per water cube in the mine. So if I want to take out these 2 copper cubes, and there's 3 water cubes in my mine, each of those copper cubes will cost me 3 pounds. So 6 pounds I had to spend to do that mining. And then after mining, we're probably opening up new tunnels and passages and sadly discovering more underground water. So you have to add another water cube to your mine. So next time I go to mine there are going to be 4 water cubes in there, unless I spend time on other actions to reduce that water, to drop that water level.
Extremely thematic.
Very much so. You can do things to help your mining efficiency too, like hiring miners and trains and ships and things like that to haul more ore out of your mines. That's always a helpful thing to do. So if I'm going to spend money, I might as well get as many cubes out of there as I can, right? And if you're short on money, you can also sell pasties.
Are they pasties or pasties?
We'll have to ask our British friends.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we'll get corrected.
Please correct us.
All right, Paul and company.
Yes, and company. So what's interesting is the price of tin and copper is set randomly at the beginning of each turn. And it can vary a lot, and you really want to sell, obviously, when the prices are high. However, you can't hold back any ore. So if I mined some tin, and it's only worth $2 a cube, and I earned $2, or I earned $2 a cube. I meant to say copper because tin's never only as cheap as 2. But if I mine copper for $2, oh, that's all I get. And copper has a very wide swing from 2 to 10 pounds, but the tin is much more stable from 4 to 7 pounds, and that is historically accurate according to the write-up in the rules. That's pretty much the game. It's all about mining cubes, buying mines, mining the cubes out, mitigating your water, and making tons of money and investing that money for victory points. So, this is one I want to talk a little bit about. We don't usually do this in trailers, but this is an extended trailer. A little bit about the rules and graphic design, because we had some questions in the guild about the difference between the Tree Frog and the
JLKM version.
And so you have the Tree Frog, I have the JL, and I mean the wooden bits are the same in these games, and they're freaking fantastic.
They are. Personally, I think it's beautiful production. Aesthetically, it looks great on the table.
It does.
And don't laugh, but it photographs really damn well. And it attracts people going by. They want to come over and take a look like, wow, what is that? It's just really eye-catching.
Well, the cubes are all Denver Bronco colors, orange, white, and blue, so it's awesome.
I got to say, though, when you get your copy, the JL and KM version, or JK and LM, whatever.
That one.
The reprint.
Right.
We compared it to my Tree Frog.
Right.
And I got to be honest, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Tree Frog,
sure you are,
huge fan. I just really like muted colors and the graphic design and just the artwork. I like the Tree Frog version better. However, the reprint version takes care of the one major how did they do that issue in the Tree Frog, which is there are water cubes in the game. Water is, wait for it, blue.
Right.
Well, there's also a blue player in the game, and they use cubes and keeping track of what is what. It's just really blue with blue with blue.
And this
whereas that one has purple instead of the blue, which makes total sense.
Purple's awesome anyway.
Right. So outside of that,
the board in the Tree Frog, the board has charts on it, and all the charts are facing different directions.
Well, it's Martin Wallace's 50%. When the side you're looking across,
you can read a quarter of the board. I can read a quarter of the board. So the Tinner's Trail map, I think, is my opinion. The Tinner's Trail map in the JLKM version,
the reprint, right,
is here's what I think. It is graphically inferior because the Tree Frog one is prettier.
Okay,
this is a little garish, but I think it's functionally superior because the charts aren't all facing weird directions and the money track is one, not this weird 2-level thing. But we play with poker chips.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the money track. It might have been overthinking things too much, or
Martin,
or just trying to try something different, or being cheap so we didn't have to get money. I'm not sure what it was, but either way, we didn't bother playing with it. We just played with poker chips and said to hell with it.
I'm interested in what you think the weight of Tinner's Trail is.
I think it would be a solid, medium. It'd be kind of like how Le Havre is an entry level into heavier games. I would say Tinner's Trail could also be in that, but not into heavier games, but more into medium, heavy.
Yeah.
Because the mechanics, very simple.
Very simple.
But the depth of play and being able to grasp everything and all those aha moments, I feel like there's some legit depth there.
Yeah, I wrote the heavier end of medium, and the thing that tips it towards that rather than just a plain medium is the auctions and how you can use them to manipulate players and things. There's some good stuff there. So what do you think about complexity and planning? We just kind of talked about complexity a little bit. The rules are cake, right?
Yeah, super easy. Like, this is the type of game I'm not really good, and our group does not sit down and bust out a new game and read the rules and play the game. That just doesn't happen with our group. One of us always learns it ahead of time.
Right.
However, Tinner's Trail, Steel Driver, that type game are the type of game that you could sit down, read the rules, and, at the table, and, okay, let's do this real quick.
Indeed.
So, rules-wise, Not hard at all. I think very, very simple, especially for those accustomed, those listening that are accustomed to the games that we play. It's cake. Totally fine.
On the planning side, I feel like that's, if you're really kind of only planning one turn because of the volatility in the markets.
For the most part, I would agree with you. However, like you said, the volatility, especially with the copper mines, right? Because those range 2 to 10.
Right.
There can be some planning involved in buying mines that are heavy in copper early, even though copper is not worth anything.
Oh, sure.
Planning for the future, knowing when to honestly, clear the water out, when to mine it, etc.
Hoping for the future, really, because the prices randomly determined at the beginning of your term, copper may never be worth 10.
You're right. However, if you play the EV of it, if you play the odds, because when it's bottomed out, you get that plus one. Odds are it's going to go up
at least
and go
be
up
worth a little more.
Realistically, much more.
Something I enjoy about the planning in the game is that it typically involves budgeting. I've got X dollars. Now, how much money do I want to commit to external investments right now, and how much money do I need to carry forward in the next turn for auctions? Even if I don't want to buy something, even if I just want to bid to interfere.
Right. Plus, in case you get stuck.
Right. And how many cubes am I going to mine? So how much money am I going to have to spend on mining expenses, right?
Well, not only that, but you also have to factor in turn order for that, because if you're going to be earlier in turn order versus or later in turn order, I should say, you then have to worry about what developments are available to you and that to help offset that water cost. And so there's definitely a lot of forethought. I don't know how much planning. I would say no more than a round ahead.
Sure.
So it's tactical in that respect. But as far as like long-term planning, strategic over the whole course of the game, I don't know that there's a lot in there.
And it's a short game, 4 turns. Right. And it goes pretty quick. So.
And I mean, you're talking realistically, it's an hour to an hour and a half max.
Yeah, 20, 25 minutes a player.
Right. I think that
I wouldn't play it with 2. I did play it with 2, and I wouldn't play it with 2.
Right. Yeah. It's a 3 or 4 player game.
So some of the cool things about the game that you and I have enjoyed. One of the first things I just want to get off the table is the randomness of the market. You know how I feel about random stuff in my heavy economic games. But at this one, I feel like a couple things. I don't mind it here because it's not really a heavy game. It's got definite some depth, but the central mechanic of the random price of goods is very thematic and historic according to Martin's write-up in the game. And I'm good with that, actually. It just reflects what apparently was really happening at the time. And it hits everybody the same, right? Copper's worth 4 for you. It's worth 4 for me.
For me, as far as the randomness, I have absolutely zero problem with it. And in fact, I like it in this game.
I agree.
For 2 reasons. Number 1, thematically, it makes sense. And even though theme isn't on the forefront of either of our, particular likes or dislikes as a whole, when theme is done right, it is only going to enhance a game, in my opinion.
Yes.
And the fact that this is a short game, it's an hour to 90-minute game, I don't mind the randomness in this. There are those out there that are listening that are going to just flatly refuse to have to, adjust to the changing conditions, a la, ZOMG, any kind of random is bad. I mean, for those people, simple variant you could do. You could house rule it. Hey, you can roll all 4 rounds, and know what's coming. But in my opinion, that's going to remove any meaningful decisions and calculated EV the game provides by doing that. I feel like that would actually take away from the game.
I think
that removing of the randomness just doesn't make sense.
No, I think it would remove some of the varying character of the game from session to session, too.
Right. And as far as I'm concerned, randomness and length of play are directly proportional on how much I'm willing to accept.
Exactly my thoughts. One thing that I really dug when I was reading the rules is for every action in the game and then at the end, as well as the beginning, Mr. Wallace provided a little historical paragraph on why things were like they were. And matter of fact, just to double back on the randomness, he even says in his historical notes that he's not really fond of that randomness in this game, but it really reflects what's going on. And other than making a historical timeline where the players knew what the heck was going on, that was the way to handle it. So
yeah,
anyway,
I
appreciate all his notes.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. It's almost like designer notes instead of having its own sub part of the rule book, he kind of interjects it at the beginning of each, step.
Yes.
That was cool. So the time mechanic, I just think is really smart. And I got to be honest, I had like an aha moment here when you were going through this and you were comparing it to Kraftwagen and Glenmore.
Right.
It's identical to that, but it's not that shape on the board.
It's linear,
and so I never put two and two together. And I was like, oh, it's just like that. But I just think it's really, really cool.
I enjoy that mechanic.
I do too, to where you can choose, lots of little actions or use the bigger ones like the
add it.
That's
3 times.
Right. So that's 3 months worth of time, and you're sacrificing developments possibly or other actions that you might be doing. That's basically a third of an entire turn.
But it's a hell of a good action.
It is. So using the actions to hammer away both at players' cash as well as them using time, especially in the late turns. Let me give you an example.
Please.
Bidding £2 British sterling for a mine, knowing full well that your opponents can't allow you to win that mine for that little money. However, also knowing that I know that they don't want to waste the 2 months worth of time, which would then allow me and others to snag up all those juicy developments that are still available. Then again, if they do let you purchase the mine for that little, you're the one spending the 2 months of game time building the mine, while they either take said developments or possibly another juicier mine, put that up for bid, and maybe either you're short of time or you're short of money.
Oh my God, the auctions, man.
Bottom line, excellent decisions, to make with what actions are available to you, both in the auctions themselves as well as the litany of decision or of options, of different actions that you can take is just way better than I thought this game would be.
When you play this game with players that love and understand auctions, the valuations, the timing, the cost of winning, the cost of losing, the auctions just like pop out of the game, man. It is just, and you and I are big auction fans. I just dig the auction so much, man, so much. It's unforgiving.
Hold on. What? Okay, tell me.
That whole thing where you earn less victory points as the game progresses. So if I do better in round 1 than you better do a lot better than me in round 2 and 3.
I wouldn't say it's unforgiving. I think there's no catch-up mechanic.
Right.
But there is ways to catch up.
You can play better. You can play well. You can...
Right, and you can outmaneuver players as the game goes on and make up the difference. But being behind the 8 ball, instead of a game like Outpost, for example, where if you fall behind, you're probably SOL, or an 18XX
for many hours.
if you don't change, rusting trains, etc.
Right.
In this, there are ways to outmaneuver and force players into positions they don't want to be and make them make decisions that they don't want to have to make, and hopefully force them into making mistakes that you can then capitalize on and make up that difference.
Okay, fair. The last thing I have on the cool stuff is the whole mining mechanic with the cost being water and you add more water. I just it's so simple and so clean and so brilliant. I really that mechanic is just killer.
And I can just imagine it. The guys down in the mine, they're mining. Okay, they
eating
took
pasties.
Sure, pasties. Right. They're out there. They took out some copper or tin or a mix of both, and they dug down, and all of a sudden, they hit more water.
Yeah,
so
man.
more water comes into the mine, just like what happens. And I just, when theme is done right, it really does add to the game. And I think it's just really, it's obviously, hugely abstracted, but I think it's done exceptionally well in this game.
Was there anything that stood out to you on the other side of that coin? Maybe not exceptionally, or...
Yeah, the main thing, actually, to me, and I'm sure you're going to hit on this pretty good, is the unique scoring system of buying victory points with the money earned while also having to keep enough on hand for auctions and other uses in following turns. So, they're limited to only 2 purchases of a given victory point block.
Right. So I could spend, in the first round, $30 to get 36 points, but only 2 players can do that, is what you're saying.
Right. And so it gives the appearance of tough decisions on when to pass each round, as earlier passes equate to earlier turn order, and maybe in theory you could block players out of the higher victory point amounts to purchase. But it just doesn't feel like it fits the game. It just feels clunky or quirky, or fill in the right word, and maybe not even completely fleshed out. Honestly, I'm hoping to ask Martin when we interview him about this specific thing. But I know you have more to say on that too.
Yeah, my problem with the scoring is that because you can put 2 in a spot, and the spots are equal eventually. And what I mean by that, I'm having a hard time describing that, but what I mean by that is 2 people can invest $30 to get 36 points in the first turn. Okay?
Right.
So if I go there and I spend my $30, I have 36 points. Let's say somebody else does it. It's your turn.
I have the amount of money to spend there, but I don't have the location
available. Right, because there's already 2 cubes there.
Right.
You can, if turn order worked out this way, or if other investments weren't made, you could actually buy the 2 spots for $15 each. So you've also spent $30, and you've also earned 30 points. So there was nothing really gained or lost by being first, third, and each spot there's just no, it's 1D, right? It's one dimensional on the spots. No spot, regardless of how much money you spend, is worth more than any other spot. For example, in round 1, you will get 1.2 victory points for every pound you spend, regardless of what spot you go.
Right, and so there's just there's the illusion of blocking.
It is an illusion, you're right.
But it's really not there.
There's an illusion of blocking and an illusion of, I spent more money than you, so I got a better investment or whatever.
Right. So there are real decisions to be made there when buying the victory points, but it's not of the actual buying of the victory points. It's more or less, how much do I need to save for the next round, and then trying to figure that out based on turn order and all that. So there are real decisions to be made regarding buying the victory points.
Regarding how much money to spend.
Right, but not what victory points to buy. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm unhappy with that. I developed my own external investment chart where I made it a more two-dimensional. So, for example, the more money you spend, the more victory points you would get per pound.
The ratio, right?
Right. So in the first round, if you spent $15, you'd get 18 points.
Which is 1.2.
Which is exactly like the game would be. But if I spent $40, I would get 60 victory points.
Which is a point and a half per pound British sterling.
So I'm incentivizing you to spend more money because you're getting a better deal for that.
Right.
And then as the game goes on, the deals are still better the more you spend.
But they're not as good as they were in the previous round. So here's a question for you. Okay. And I obviously, I am a huge Martin Wallace fanboy.
Same.
To a point. However, I don't want this to come across as, I'm just going to say it.
Do it.
I wonder how much thought and how much playtesting and how much real fleshing out of that really went into it, and the fact that it's just so linear and it's just straight across the board. I wonder if Martin just said, you know what, this works well enough, let's go with it, as opposed to having, really made it more dynamic and more interesting and felt more fleshed out. So again, I'm not trying to make it as an indictment.
No.
For all I know, the man spent hundreds of hours, doing it. I'm not saying that, but I think that there was the ability and the option to make it more dynamic. On a quick tangent, it could just be he just didn't think of it. Because if you look in Indonesia, the Splatter guys, when we interviewed them, we asked them about, why they didn't do this or why they did do this regarding Indonesia, and they were like, just didn't think about it. It just kind of we just ran with it. So okay, fair enough.
Right
so it's
on.
not
Yeah.
an indictment.
No,
it's
right,
just
right.
maybe they just didn't. He chose not to go in that direction.
Fair enough.
But I do like this idea more.
Okay, well,
I have
I
no
don't know.
idea if it works,
Yeah.
but I love the idea.
Next time
of
we
it,
play,
at
we'll
least.
try it.
Sure.
So the Guild has asked us some questions. There was only one that we did not address in our talks here, and that question is, there have been a lot of talk about shorter games being quote-unquote better these last few months. Something I recall you, meaning us, rejecting in the hobby as a whole.
Oh boy, do I.
Tinner's Trail seems to form a group of games, or I guess really be a part of a group of games, that are fairly brief, pretty interesting, basic mechanics, emergent gameplay. From the Guild, I've also picked up Chicago Express, and when I include that in that bracket, he talks about a container and stuff like that. Do you guys recognize this grouping? If so, there are other games to look for.
Well, I said the same 60 to 90 minute game certainly has a place. Now, speaking just for us, they have a place, just not as the main games on a given game day. Having games like these, the shorter but weighty games, are wonderful for between main gaming courses. A step up from filler, but not really the featured attraction of the day. And it's not light, so there's got to be a term or a classification for these type of games, because they're not light games. They're not really short. They're not filler. So it's somewhere in between. So maybe somebody can throw out some ideas on that. But as far as other games to include, this is me, and I'm sure you have your own take. King of Siam, or the new the re-implementation.
King is Dead, yeah.
There you go. Neue Heimat, I think, is the quintessential example of this.
A lot of the winsome titles we've talked about.
I had that. I also I kind of agree with Container at lower player counts because it plays so quick.
Right.
Maybe Speicherstadt by Feld, I thought maybe.
Yeah.
And also Metropolis.
Yeah.
The Istari game. Yeah. I thought so off the top of my head when I was kind of prepping for the show, I was going through my collection. I was like, yeah, these fit. There are others that are shorter, like Arboretum and stuff, but those are filler, true filler. So, what's your take on it?
I mean, just for myself, I don't advocate that the length of a game is equivalent to its awesomeness. I think really the spirit of what we meant, at least I meant, was quality over quantity. I'd rather play quality games rather than, let's get 10 different games in today.
Exactly.
And I don't really care what the length of it is. If you said we're going to play 5 games that are Tinner's Trail's length and meat, I'd be perfectly happy with that. Typically, the games that we prefer are typically longer.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just how that works out. So there's great long games, there's great medium games, there's great short games.
But like you said, quality over quantity.
Indeed.
That's the key.
You want to summarize Tinner's Trail, and then I will?
Sure. Real short and sweet. Quirky, attractive, and a lot of fun. Perfectly fills that quote-unquote more than a filler time, either between a main games or to start or end a game day. Embrace the theme and enjoy the ride. I say it's recommended.
Do you have a rating?
I do. I gave it a solid 4.
Okay.
I think if that market mechanic didn't feel so
Flat.
afterthoughtish and flat, very well could legitimately be a 5. But I think that's the one thing for me holding it back.
For me, definitely this game, unlike a lot of Martin Wallace titles, has a lack of ambiguous situations and weird rules that compound on each other. It's very simple and straightforward. And it's quite clear. You strike while the iron's hot with the different goods that you're going to mine. Don't sleep on your turn either, because every action you're going to count is going to count. It's quite a thematic game, I feel, especially having read the history stuff in the rules. That adds to the thematic nature of it. It's quick playing. It's got crunchy auctions, some great mechanics, and that random, as we mentioned, fits the theme and the historical explanation, and it affects everyone evenly. Besides the auctions, the concept of just reducing the water levels in your mines before you extract ore, before you run out of actions, and other players with a well-timed auction could upset your plans if you're like, crap, now I have to win that one. I can't let him win that. It's just simply terrific for me. So look, JKLM is out of business. Tree Frog is shutting it down. If this game has any interest if you have any interest in this game, just get a copy right now. I got mine from Game Surplus.
Rock on.
And I'm giving it a 5. I hear what you're saying on the 4 thing, but for me, man, fighting in these auctions against like you and Paul Chad is just the bomb.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, I'm not gonna fault you at all putting it there.
That's Tinner's Trail. Liberty, equality, fraternity, or death. The last, much the easiest to bestow, O guillotine.
Liberte, designed by Martin Wallace, published in 2001, originally by Warfrog Games, reprinted by Valley Games. Plays 3 to 6 players, plays in about 2 hours. So Liberte covers the time period between the convening of the Estat General in 1789 until the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1799.
My emperor.
At its core, Liberte is a card-driven, area-majority game that plays over the course of 4 rounds. Not a standard area-majority game, mind you, but one nonetheless. The goal of the game, provided it goes the full 4 rounds, is to have the most victory points after the 4th round of the game. You gain those points, mostly, by having the most influence in the party that won the election that round. There are 3 factions or parties vying for control of France via elections. The Royalists, Moderates, and Radicals, represented by white, blue, and red blocks, respectively. Getting the most influence in the winning party, however, requires that you have cunningly manipulated the individual elections of the 27 or so provinces within France that round. You get that ever-important influence by playing a card, possibly 2, which will dictate in what region you may place those influence blocks, as well as how much influence, 1 to 3 blocks, and of what faction that influence is for. Players take turns playing and drawing cards, adding blocks of influence while respecting the placement rules. Each province can have a total of 3 stacks, 1 stack belonging to a single player, and each of those stacks may only be 3 influence high and may only contain one party's colored blocks. Got all it? Good. Once one of the party's block supply has been emptied, that triggers the end of the action phase. After settling the battle for the round and awarding those points, each province's votes is determined by the highest stack of influence. The owning player of the highest stack in each province receives one of those blocks of influence, Paris being the exception in which they're awarded all of them.
Mm-hmm.
With max stack size of 3 blocks, there can be significant amounts of ties during the elections. Players may choose to spend a card from their tableau that they kept previously during the action phase to help influence that province and win that block. After all the provinces have been determined, whichever party has the most votes wins the election. The 2 players with the most blocks in the winning party's colors are awarded points, as is the player with the most blocks in the party that finished last in the election. If the players get to the end of the 4th round, whomever has the most VPs wins. But there are a couple of ways the game can end suddenly that I haven't mentioned.
Indeed they are.
First, if at any point the Radicals, i.e. the red blocks, win 17 or more of the provinces in a given round during the election, they automatically trigger the end of the game, and whomever has the most red influence, both in cards and blocks, wins. VPs don't mean squat. The same goes if at any time, save for during the elections, the Royalists, the white blocks, ever control 7 or more certain provinces, and someone brings this to the table's attention. The game ends immediately, and the player with the most white blocks and influence wins.
Right. That's the interesting part.
Exactly.
Brings it to the table's attention.
So the game, mechanically, really quite simple, but there's, I think, quite a good bit of depth to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you load up your blocks in a particular province or spread them out and try to win multiple provinces? Do you use any of your special cards to execute someone's general and remove their ability to influence a tied region or lead a battle? Or maybe you have a card that removes their entire stack of influence in a province. All the while, constantly keeping an eye out for someone pushing for a white counter-revolution with the Royalists. There's a lot to not really track, but a lot of options, even though you're only drawing a card or playing a card.
Right, and like the way you started that off, what you just said was simple. And like this is another Martin Wallace game that the rules are not difficult. Like you explained it that day when I played it, and I understood immediately, right? It's unusual for Martin Wallace, it seems, sometimes.
I can get on board with that. So there's plenty of tension in the gameplay, as well as watching the election play out and, not being sure how it's going to, turn out, and having an election come down to the final few provinces, and maybe there's ties in those provinces, and some players, the tied players, have cards that they haven't used yet, to where they can then use them in those ties, and you don't know which way it's going to go. And I think there's a lot of fun, like nail-biting tension throughout.
I definitely agree. There is tension, tactical tension, because you don't know what are they holding, what do they have up there that they're going to play. Ed, will you really spend that 3 general on this? I'm going to make you find out, right?
Right, exactly. Now, watching other players, draw cards from the face-up cards can kind of give you information on what other players' plans are, which forces you're engaged the whole time, because you should be watching what cards people are drawing. Oh, he's going for a lot of white cards. Maybe he's going for a counter-revolution, and it's something you need to be aware of. Maybe not this round, but maybe in subsequent rounds. You need to watch what he's doing with those white blocks. Or it could be red or blue, but just as an example, you do need to be constantly aware of what everyone is doing at the table.
One thing I dug about the game was it played 6 really well.
It's not nearly as chaotic as I expected.
I feared that it would just be a disaster, and it was not.
Right, because I had played it 3 and 4 players a couple of times, and 3 was fine. 4 was really enjoyable. I feel like 4 or 5's really going to be the sweet spot, and I just wanted to experience 6 just to see the chaos explode.
Well, it's nice to have games that you can play with 6, actually.
Right, because they're few and far between. Right. Now, there are games that say they play 6.
Agreed.
But they're not 6-player games.
Don't want to do it.
Which I thought it was totally playable and totally reasonable in this.
I also love this period of time. And yes, Napoleon is my emperor.
So with those special cards...
Excuse me, Bonaparte.
With those special cards that I briefly mentioned, there is some nastiness in a take that way that can definitely turn some people off.
Highly tactical.
Agreed. The sudden death victory conditions can also be really sneaky, and it definitely is going to be divisive, I think.
Well, that's not a new thing in Wallace games. He's got several games where the ending conditions can be sudden and different and unexpected and wonky or whatever, so...
And see, I like it because it even though it may feel sudden to the players that weren't expecting it, the players that have been planning it requires planning. It's not...
It's probably one of those things you like or don't like
about
a game.
My point is, it's not going to sneak up on those that are causing it to happen.
I can see how many white areas there are.
Right. Well, you had the chance to, A, pay attention to it.
Right.
B, you had a chance to do something about it. But just because I'm doing it in a smart, subtle way, then, hey, good on me.
Because you some good drugs for this cold, buddy.
Right. That happened in our first game, in which I fell way behind during the second round, and I saw how it was playing out, and I'm like, I have no chance. If this goes to victory points, I know I have no chance. So I spent the entire next 2 rounds very subtly building up the Royalists, and then on the coup de grace, on the final action of the final turn, I was last, because God knows I was way behind in victory points. I was able to boom, 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 and look at that. I won. And at first, Paul Chad, who was in the game, really didn't like it, because he's like, what the hell? Because he'd been dominating in victory points.
Right.
But again, I had been planning that and working towards that for half the game.
The elephant fears the mouse.
Just because I wasn't being obvious about it doesn't mean it wasn't a legit way. And he actually came around to realizing that and actually was like, huh, yeah, okay, I can get on board with that. So I really dug that. The one caveat on the rules that I want to point out is the dagger variant. We never played without it, and it's a real simple thing, and it's actually in the rules for the second edition, the Valley Games, which is the edition I have that we played. It's generally accepted that, yes, you play with this variant because it keeps the face-up cards from getting stagnant and people avoiding them. It gives more value to the one influence cards as opposed to them being completely worthless versus the 2 and 3. So it's simple. It's something simple. Apparently, somebody on the BGG forums named Dagger. That's his username, and that's where it comes from. It's not from like a backstabby thing.
Okay.
But anyway,
Dagger.
So
give him the dagger.
We never played without it, but from what I gather in reading, you shouldn't. So,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, that's what I got. You got anything else?
You know, I'm not a huge area control fan, and I've played the game once, so take it, with a grain of salt here. But in that 6-player game, I won, and I won by not playing in any areas that other people were playing, essentially.
No, that's smart, I think.
But I was doing that because of the cards I was drawing. And so I didn't really dig the game.
Okay.
I don't mind the game, if that makes any sense.
No,
I will play it again.
I totally get that. You're not a fan of games like Dominant Species?
Area control.
Conflict of Plants?
I want my area control to be short, i.e., the King of Siam.
Sure.
That's 20 minutes, I'm done. Right?
It's just not in your wheelhouse. And
Right,
that's fine.
right.
Whereas
the tactical,
I really enjoy this type of game. So yeah, it's just different strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
But like you said, even though it's not your type of game, there's something here that's worthy of playing.
Yeah, it was not unfun.
Right.
Right? It was fun.
All right. So some questions from the guild.
Yes.
First off, I played Liberte before I played Colonialism by Spielworks, but found the structure to be somewhat similar. Which of the two games do you prefer? For me...
I didn't find the structure similar at all.
Really? You didn't?
No.
I totally do. The card play and the interaction.
You're playing some face-down cards, and then there's resources in the places that you're doing the area control. And actually, I like Colonialism quite a lot, which is
an area
control game. But it's got some interesting little twists. So,
to be honest with you...
I don't see the comparison.
See, when Ben asked this question, I kind of was like, dude, I totally get that. Now, they're not similar in a sense that you can trade one out for the other. There's the card play. Yes, the first card that you play in Colonialism is face down, but everything else subsequent is face up.
But it's also, it's a hand of cards, and it's not,
I got a similar feel. But for me, I enjoyed the dark theme, I guess, in Colonialism.
I do too. I feel like a colonial despot.
Right. And so I would probably lean a little bit more towards Colonialism as far as if I had a favorite.
Sure.
But
Same.
it's not a huge, chasm. So next up, did you find the start of the game meaningful, or do you just cast out counters until a motivation eventually emerges?
I put out counters where I had cards to allow me to do so, with some amount of strength. So I found I found the game just as a mechanical exercise, really.
Okay.
So, and a lot of that had to do with the luck of my draw in my first game. So,
just random, here, let's see what happens.
I can play in this area, or this area.
Right. See, I get what you're saying here. The only information you have at the beginning is your hand, so that can drive your early decisions. But I feel like now keep in mind, I've played this 4 or 5 times versus your one. But by the midpoint of the first round, you get a feel for the direction the wind is blowing, and you can adjust as need be, or at least attempt to with card draws. To either join the way things are going or to try and draw cards to counteract that. But again, you are to a point limited by the draw of the cards. So last but not least, did this remind you of any other game at all? And I said that I really think that Ben has it right with the comparison to colonialism. Obviously, there's no native population to exterminate first, and nor resources
to grab.
But I get a similar feel. So, did you have anything that you felt was similar?
Area control. Now, no, I mean, it's
just the mechanic. You're
right.
saying, okay.
Similar mechanic to many other games. A lot of differences in Liberte. So.
You got a summary for us, sir?
I don't. I don't feel like with one play and lukewarm on just area control that I could really do justice to the game or anything like that, or even rate it.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. So, all right, for me, if the game were a simple area majority game, I'd say that it'd get stale quickly. But I found enough subtleties in card play as well as the sudden victory conditions to separate itself from other like-minded games. While it certainly won't be a win for everyone, a.k.a. my partner here, those that don't mind a little backstabbery mixed in with some Martin Wallace quirkiness will find a game that will reward repeated play, and I'm happy to say it has a home on my shelf.
Right on.
I give it a rating of 4.
Okay.
But yeah, if you put a gun to my head and said pick one, whether it's colonialism or Liberte, I would lean colonialism.
Good decision.
Yeah, so that's Liberte by Martin Wallace. All right, this should be a lot of fun because I'm really curious to get your legitimate take.
Same.
On our featured review tonight, and that's Masters of Venice.
Masters of Venice, a little-known quirky game of stock trading and commerce in medieval Venice.
Oh, this has a theme?
Now, if you're still awake. No. It's a 2009 publication by R&R Games. The designer is Frank Di Lorenzo, and Jared Blondo is the artiste involved in the game. It's a 2 to 5 player game. It takes about 30 minutes per player in my estimation of our mini plays. Availability and cost of the game is it's out there, man. I got mine for like $15. I saw it on Amazon for $26. It's out there
on the BGG market. The lowest I saw that's in good shape, $12.
Yeah,
so it's available.
It's totally available. R&R Games site has it for sale too. So what is happening in the Masters of Venice?
Please tell us, sir. Trading in the Mediterranean, possibly?
Possibly. Yeah, just one small area thereof. It is a pick up and deliver, secret auction, commodity speculation, stock ownership, action drafting, role selection game.
And recipe filling.
And recipe filling. That was the pick up and deliver part.
Okay,
for me.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Same gig in
All
there.
right.
There are 12 turns in this game. Interrupted every 3 turns for a bidding round. So it'll start with a bidding round, go 3 turns. Bidding round, 3 turns, etc. 12 turns. The bidding round is going to determine the turn order for the next 3 turns, next 3 rounds, and allow the players to select a role that will be used by them during those next 3 rounds. On each turn, the players will all secretly select a location on the board for their pawn to move to. Then, in turn order, the players will take the action associated with the location that they move to. Some of the locations are shared, and that means that if one of the players selects that location, then all of the players will get an action there. And this is a very critical part of the game. So all of the players that go to a given shared location will take their actions in turn order. Then all of the players that did not go to that shared location with their pawn will still get an action there, but they're going to get their action in table order after the last person in turn order that acted there. It sounds a little weird, but it really works interestingly. So there's 4 kinds of shared locations. There's the shops where you can sell commodities. There's the guild hall where you can acquire and or fulfill guild orders. There is the stock market where you can buy and or sell shares of stock, and there's the docks where you can purchase commodities off of the shipping docks as they come in to Venice. Now there's also 3 non-shared locations, so you only get to do actions in these places if your pawn is sent there. So there is the Mercado where you can buy and or sell one commodity of your choice. There's the church where you can buy a token that's going to allow you to influence orders, which is really an indicator of demand for commodities at the different shops, and we'll talk about that. And there are the shipping offices. There's actually two. There's a north shipping office and a south shipping office where you can acquire a cube, a commodity cube, that's there at that office. But it's also like a mechanic that makes the docks in the game get repopulated with other commodities. So that's kind of interesting. So it's possible to create kind of combo moves. For example, you go to the market to buy that special commodity you need, and another player later in the turn order goes to a guild hall where you'll be able to fulfill your guild order now. That's kind of a nice turn.
Right.
So you can look at the turn order where people might want to go and plan your turn accordingly.
Provided people went in the places you needed them to go. Damn it.
Maybe they're thinking you're going to go there, and I'm thinking you're going to go there, and no one goes there.
Almost like a game of chicken.
Yes. So as each turn's location resolution unwinds itself, the players are basically working to make money in an oft-changing economic climate. The primary things the players are going to be doing on their turn are these. They're going to acquire commodity cubes, either to sell them for cash or to turn them in at the guild for victory points. They're going to buy and or sell stock, trying to keep your capital gains in line. You know, you're looking for stocks that might split, quote unquote, and get you some extra victory points, and also looking to take advantage of little incremental gains in stock shares based on what you see other players are potentially going to do. And you're also fulfilling guild orders to earn those victory points. And what's kind of interesting is you can decide when you get victory points from guild orders whether to take victory points or to spend the victory points to trade the victory points, I guess would be a better way to describe it, for $50. So if I earn 3 victory points, I could take 2 victory points and $50, for example, or some combination. At the end of the game, every unfulfilled guild order that you've acquired during the game will cost you 2 victory points. Each commodity cube you're stuck with will be taxed at half of its current value at the end of the game.
Which is awesome, I think. It's a little thing, but I dig it.
And basically every $100 worth of cash and investments you have is worth a victory point. That's what's going on in Masters of Venice. All right, let's get into the review. Scalability. I don't know how many times I've played. I've played several 3 and 4 player.
And we played it once 5. The first game we played was 5.
At HeavyCon was the first time.
I played it 5 times.
Then I played it maybe 7, because I think I got a couple more rounds in than you. But I haven't been keeping track.
Played it 3, 4.
Played it several times.
3 and 4 mostly, and once at 5 player.
I tell you, I'm not particularly interested in trying the game as a 2-player affair. I guess people say it's fine or whatever, but it's not the kind of game I seek for 2 players.
Agreed.
I like the more interaction of the players.
But other than that, scalability-wise, what do you think of it?
That was fine. It definitely has its differences in playtime, obviously, which is kind of why I couched it at like 30 minutes a player. Because our 3-player games go really quick, but the 4 and 5-player games are a little bit slower.
Right.
But there's more things going on in those games.
And you're likely to get more actions due to shared actions.
There's more people possibly going to those shared locations.
I think it scales well, and it's just... It feels different at the 3-player counts that I've experienced, the 3, 4, and 5. So that's a good thing, but it's really hard for me to say which I like more.
I think 4.
I likely 4 or 5, but it definitely will play considerably longer with the 4 and 5 player counts as opposed to 3.
Definitely so. So speaking of the cardboard in the box, components and graphic design.
All right, so components. I feel like it's pretty solid quality components, save for the sorry pieces.
Sorry meeples, yeah.
Yeah, hold on. Don't call them meeples.
No.
They are plastic pawns from the game Sorry.
They are.
Okay, so that has no place. There's just no reason for it. Now, if this were from the mid-90s, okay, I'd buy that, sure. But this game's from 2009. There's no excuse for that. It just doesn't fit with anything else in the game. The
cubes, though, they're like a centimeter across, big, chunky, cool cubes. So, and then you got the plastic. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it just doesn't go. The dials are all done well. You may have to hammer them a little to tighten them up a little. But the board itself is super thick. The tiles for
the rolls,
everything about it is just really solidly done.
The money is serviceable, but we use poker chips.
Yeah. The gondoleri, the wooden boat is big and chunky.
Very cool.
Yeah, the the different guild boards. They're the same thickness as the player board or as the main board. So I'm a big fan. I think they did a really, really good job.
However,
now we go into graphic design. So my apologies to Jennifer Vargas and Jared Blando.
Wait, who's apologizing to who here?
No, I understand what they were trying to do with the main board. You and I have had many a discussion about the actual verbiage that we use on this show, and make sure that there are certain keywords that, unless they are absolutely, genuinely warranted, we don't use. And that's on purpose. Mm. But I hate this main board. I really, really dislike it. I understand the artwork theme that they were going for.
I don't mind the art on it.
It just doesn't work. It's just, when we played our first game of this
at HeavyCon,
we said that I'm willing to buy a copy, but I made you and Mo promise that you guys redesign the main board to make it more playable, because this is the epitome of form over function, and I can't stand the form either.
No, it's too small. It gets too crowded. You can't tell where crap is when stuff's all over it, and it's So I laid out a larger board that is purely functional, and I separated all the shared areas on the outside of the canal, the private areas, the non-shared areas on the inside of the canal. And I think it's quite functional. And so it's been waiting for us to get these plays in and review the game. So I think it's probably time to send that to Mo for his his artistic skills.
But okay, outside of the actual functionality of the main board, I think they did a really, really good job graphic design on everything else. Okay, I've harped enough on the board. Let's move on.
Rulebook.
I'll be honest.
Quite clear for me.
Hold on. Last episode, you said, I forget what game it was. You said, you never read the rule book, but you found it fine for reference. So
I can't remember.
So let me.
I've had scotch since then.
Let me switch roles and say I have never read the rule book. However, referencing questions that have arisen anyway, that have come up. Yes. I was able to easily find all the answers in a rule book, so that tells me it's laid out logically, and it's at least put together decently.
You bet. So, is this game heavy? Is this game medium? What is this game for your mind?
I think it falls into the heavy category, but not necessarily for standard reasons.
Huh.
What about you?
I want to hear more about these standard reasons, and I'm sure we're going to. I think it falls in the heavy category as well, because I think it's certainly not medium, just because of some of the obtuseness of what's going on in the game, So,
funny you say that.
Yeah.
So let's start off talking about complexity.
Okay.
So my first point, and I have this in bold.
Okay.
This game is the poster child of a game that would be wholly unplayable without the player aid. Completely unplayable. Impossible to play without the player aid.
Agreed.
Okay. So, the complexity on this is for a Euro, taking war games out of this discussion, obviously. This is probably one of the hardest games to wrap your head around for the rules to get out of the way.
When you were taught this game, you're a little bewildered.
A little?
Okay, a lot sometimes?
Yeah. There's lots of meaty decisions, but it takes a long time for the rules to get out of the way. So this is very high on the rules complexity scale and weight, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the essential nature of the rules is not hard, but each area does different things, and some of them do the same thing, and some do that, but not that, and that's where all that complexity comes in, and that's why that aid is just so required.
Vital. Yeah. When you were going through the overview of the game, you had mentioned how when they're shared actions, they don't go in turn order. They go, here's a perfect example.
They go in turn order, then table order.
Right. So they go in turn order based on who's gone there. So if the first and third player went there, the first player will take the action first, the third player will take the action second, and then instead of the second player, then the fourth player going, which would make sense, it actually goes, and it works, don't get me wrong, but it actually would go to the player to the left of the third player because they were the last one who actually took the action. Hold on, there's another caveat. Unless somebody who is the gondolieri chooses to take their action first and interrupt it, and they go first. Yeah. So there is a perfect example of, you gotta be shitting me, right? When you're learning this game. And so this is where just the rules absolutely get in the way early on and add extreme weight to learning the game.
So what about the planning, forethought, thinking ahead, organizing activities, achieving goals?
At its most basic, like you said, it's a recipe fulfillment, stock investing, and timing game. Planning's going to play a big role in, well, pretty much across the board, really, in every aspect of this game. I feel like it is a somewhat tactical, very strategic game.
I'm going to go flip side on you. I think that the game really only offers short-term strategies, and that I agree with you. It is a game of timing and not of really long-term planning. When I'm playing it, I think like a Venetian merchant. Almost said Venusian, I think. A Venetian merchant.
They're on a different planet.
That is also a day trader. And there's not an engine in this game. I think this game is all about speculation and timing and incremental gains over the other players, and those things to me do not speak long-term strategy. It's not like, oh, buy IBM stock because it's going to be, it's not like that at all to me. And so I think most planning just spans a few turns of the blocks of three, And again, it's a game of timing. Buy low, sell high, whether it's a cube, whether it's a share, it doesn't matter. And the turn orders and the location, all that's constantly affecting things. And that's why I feel like the day trader planning.
I totally agree with you on that. However, an overarching strategy of if I'm going to go heavy guild orders or if I'm going to go heavy investing, kind of big picture-wise, I feel like can be rather strategic, that's kind of the big umbrella in which all of these other tactical decisions fall under. So I feel like it is a mix of the two.
Okay. So how do you feel about luck and random factors?
Well, there is some, and it can impact play.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that there's enough here that really bothers me. The big one, at least to me, and if I'm forgetting anything, please chime in, but the guild orders certainly can be luck of the draw, and some lucky draws can tilt the game in one player's favor or another.
Sure.
If you have a lot of resources already and someone goes to the guild and you draw the right card, boom, you can turn that in right away. And those guilds, those guild orders are significant amount of points, 3 through 6.
Oh, yeah.
And in a game in which 30 points would be a phenomenally good score,
right.
3 to 6 points is a lot of points.
Right.
So
multiple times.
It does. That part does play a big factor. The order of the church favors, in my opinion, has very minimal impact on the game.
I usually buy one.
If at all, and I probably
I don't
should
buy
have
one in every
last game.
Last game, dude, you should have.
And then there are the rumor tiles for Gondoleri.
They're a nice touch for being last, but being last isn't that big of a handicap in this game. But it is completely random as to which rumor you get.
Okay, they're random on the rumor part, but I do feel turn order does play a decent factor.
This is random, but it's probably not a big deal. It's like every player's randomly dealt one share of stock, and that's what you start the game with, and a cube. And there's lots of drawing cubes from a bag, so that's always going to be pretty random.
Obviously, sure. I funny, I didn't even put that down, but obviously, yes. Yeah. So let me hold on before we move on. Let me ask you,
fire
with the. I'll say random. I don't really want to say luck. The luck comes into, I drew the right guild order.
Right.
That type thing. But as far as the random fact, do you think it adds to or, takes away from the weight of the game? Because a lot of times we kind of talk about what the luck and random factors are, but we're not really addressing, is it adding or taking away from the game? Or neither?
I think it, honestly, I think it takes away from the weight of the game and from the gameplay at times. Like, hey, I have this rumor. I have 2 green rumors and a yellow one. Cool. That's really going to help me. It makes the game easier. It takes away some of the weight.
Okay. I totally agree with that.
Okay. Is game length an issue for you weight-wise?
It plays really quickly with 3 players, reasonably well with 4, and honestly, I feel like I need to play it more at 5 to get a better feel for it. When we played it the first time, it was the very last game of Heavy Con, and we were all pretty wiped out by then.
It was the first time we played it.
Right, and it felt like it just dragged forever. Yet, we both wanted a copy after playing.
Yes.
So it couldn't have been that bad, right?
Well, correct.
I feel confident saying that the game length will increase as you increase the player count, but I don't know that it adds much weight by way of weight to the game. Maybe it adds when you hit to the 5th player. It would add to the weight because it does make
more volatility in prices,
as well as that I would say would offset some of the weight. But I'm feeling the actual game length itself adding. It makes it feel long with 5 players. But again, we were extremely worn out at that point. So if it does add anything to the game weight, the game length I'm talking about, I would say nominally.
Agreed. I just wrote, no, not a big deal. You had this whole elaborate thing.
Let me take this 3 minutes.
No, it's cool. No. So before we talk about getting it, I have a something about the weight of the game that plays into getting it. And it doesn't fit into our other categories, and that is people that are new to the game, and as we found out last weekend, sometimes people that are not new to the game.
This is me hitting Tony.
Can forget that the orders in the shop are needed to be able to fulfill guild orders and to sell cubes, and like you'll see folks plan an action to go there and I'm going to sell these 3 cubes. Shit, there's only 1 order, right? And that'll hose them.
Constantly I am forgetting that, and it's my own fault because there's a lot to track in this game, but it definitely that goes to I see what you're saying, because it's not rules complexity, it's just
it's one more thing you got to keep track of, and for the noobs especially. It's hard.
I wouldn't say for the noobs, I'd say for everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So how about getting it? Like so many games we feature on Heavy Cardboard, the machinations of this game are complex to hear, but they're not the beast they appear to be after you get into the game and get used to it. There are a few claws and stuff like the orders that'll still catch you and stuff like that. But I feel like after half the game you kind of can, but you're already dead by then, right? So you'll hopefully be looking forward to your second play of it.
Yeah, I would say it takes at least the full game, and in my case, I still get bit by some of this stuff as far as the getting it.
Right.
And going into our most recent game, so that's my 4th or 5th game, I was like, and we'd played it a few games in quick succession, over the course of a number of days instead of weeks, and I was like, I don't have a plan. I don't know. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I got to get points, but I just don't have like a really good, hey, I'm going to try this strategy. Yeah. And I'm 4 games in. So I would say complexity-wise, as far as the getting it and the weight there, I would put it on par with a game like Venice as far as extremely hard for it to just click. Clunk. Yeah, to actually... And I like that, though.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, that's not... I don't mind battling through it because I feel like there's enough there.
Right on. All right, let's talk about things we particularly enjoy about this here game.
All right, start with the setup. The variable goods that are available, they're randomly drawn from the bag, right? But the thing that is so cool, and it's probably dumb that I get this excited about this.
Okay.
Is the market is affected before the game even starts.
Yeah.
Because everything starts at a base of $40 or 40 ducats. So $40. But for every cube, every resource drawn out of the bag pre-game, just to seed the board and for the players, that price, all those different prices are going to be adjusted. Mm-hmm. So every game is going to start out, different marginally values, different. Right. But, dude, why do more games not do that? I think that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very cool. You don't want to have every good worth the exact same amount of money at the beginning of the game.
Yet
right?
most do.
Right.
So, I think that's fantastic.
Artificially fixed in some other manner.
Right.
That's very cool. The bidding for turn order. I really, I dig that. It's a blind bid. Not everybody likes that. I don't mind it because you're going to get something for your money no matter what you've spent. Unless, of course, you spent zero.
Because even if you, quote-unquote, lose the bid, you still pay it.
Yeah, right. But again, you're going to get something for your money.
Right.
You're going to be able to affect the number of orders in a shop, either up or down. So that can be very tactical to help you or hurt others.
More help you, I would say.
Absolutely, more help you. And it's an interesting decision because, at least for me, money's tight sometimes. So it's like, man, how much do I want to invest in this turn order thing because I really need to buy a freaking red cube. It can make for some hard decisions.
And it also affects what roles, are available. Because, okay, let's say I still bid 10, but I took third. Maybe third's better than fourth because I didn't want the gondolieri. So, okay, I still have an option for something else. But here's another cool aspect on that.
Okay.
Is if you want the gondolieri because you want to be able to get those rumors, which are those, hey, move one peg any direction, you still might desperately need to adjust the orders. Because like what you were saying, the amount you bid is going to be able to, for every $5 you bid, you adjust the orders up in one shop, or $10 for every 10 you can adjust one shop down, either or. And you must do one. So if you desperately need to raise the orders in a store, but you still really want to be the gondolieri, I love that you still have to bid something to be able to raise those orders, but you're still hoping you bid low enough, because they're increments of 5, to be able to still get the role that you want. And I think even something as simple as that is just another layer of decision making, which is great.
And I want to be last at least once during the game. Not more than 2 times, but 1 or 2 times in the game, I want to be last so that I can acquire those rumors. And once in each of those 3 sets of rounds, or sets of 3 rounds, interrupt turn order.
Right.
I think that's kind of cool.
And speaking of the turn order, I like that as the gondolieri, or gondolieri, as we pronounce it, whatever. Larry the gondola. You can choose one of 2 things as far as the going first. You can either, the place that you selected, that be the first area that's activated and you go first. Or it could be another area that happens before you go and then go first in
Interrupt that. Yeah.
Right. So you have an option, and that kind of adds to that complexity as far as, oh, wait, you can do this or this or this. But I dig it. I like the or how should I word this? It gives you more leeway in how to use that role. You're not hard fixed into this one particular thing.
It's not a death sentence to be last.
Not at all.
Because of that role, but also just because we're on the subject, just because of the way turn order works and the shared areas, being last and not going to a shared area when someone else doesn't mean you're going to be the last one to act in that shared area because of the table order aspect of it and stuff. So I just think the turn order mechanic, for as screwball as it sounded, as we described it, is really neat.
Yeah, I think it's clever. It's just hard to grok at first.
Yeah.
So speaking of hard to grok, even though it still kicks my butt, the game really is intuitive and it makes economic sense. When supply increases, prices fall.
Right.
When demand increases, prices rise. You go to the church, you ask for favors. All this makes perfect sense, both thematically and in the real world. But man, it can be a bear for me to remember.
Let's be clear on the church. You're paying for favors.
Well, okay. Well, you're tithing, right?
And I think it's a good idea to, not to pour salt on a wound, but like go to the church and just have one of those markers. And I've only started doing that once in the game, at the beginning of the game.
It's a get out of jail free card almost.
Well, you know what? I learned the hard way too. So,
yeah, that hurt. But whatever. Hey, I still enjoyed the game.
Hell yeah.
It's extremely interactive, this game.
Oh, yeah.
Almost every transaction involving a resource results in the change in demand for both prices for that change in demand and price
and
for the good.
Share price of that shop too.
Right. I love that. Have we mentioned shares in stock market?
And this is where timing is critical from turn to turn, and the turn order too. So if you and I are going there, and you go first, and you did something to cause the price to go up, and I needed to buy something, now I'm $5 short of being able to buy. You know, what I mean, that that timing and the turn order and everything, and all the little incremental changes that each player does during the course of the turn to the prices and the demand and the share prices. Wow, it's pretty critical to keep an eye on that. And and I've been in that spot where I've been $5 short now. Thanks a lot for doing that. You know?
Yep. There's a lot to track, but I feel like it's intuitive. I enjoy the mental gymnastics for the game forces you into, and to piggyback on what you just said, how other players' actions can absolutely force you to change your plans at a drop of a hat. Maybe even right as your turn, before your action has come up, but because somebody else earlier in turn order had a shared action, and now because of what everyone else did even before your action, all of a sudden you're like, well, all right, we're going to have to adjust, and let's figure out another way to skin the cat.
Yes. Making lemonade.
Right.
So it's the last turn of the game. You're in the lead. You've got some cubes and a guild order. I'm behind, so is player 2 and 3. We have cubes and a guild order. You make the announcement, I'm not going to the guild hall, jerk-offs.
Because you have to go there to fill
because we're losing. One of us is going to have to go. So me and the other players, we're trying to, in our minds, go, Sally will do it, or Bob will do it. I won't have. And it turns out no one goes. I mean, dude, the secret selection of the locations.
Absolutely.
And how you can outthink yourself.
Well, it's not just that, but it's actually, there's a bit of intuition and as well as a game of chicken involved with, and you can kind of not verbally berate. That's I don't mean to, but you can just manipulate people into doing what you need them to do.
And like you in the lead, you didn't have to.
Nope.
You'd be perfectly happy to let one of us go and score some extra points. But if we don't go, cool.
We're all going to lose points equally. Exactly. I do love just how the dials on here are used for a few different things. They're used for initial turn order as far as the bids, but then for every action to select the where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's just ingenious. I mean, it's very, very, very well done.
The stock split, quote unquote, is kind of cool. When the price of a stock goes up really high, it'll split. So the price will be chopped in half. But for every share that you owned, you got a victory point. And in a game where victory points are like manhole covers, it's pretty cool.
Let me ask you something, though, and I don't want to get off track, but and it's something we can either discuss now or come back to.
Okay.
When a stock splits, it just went from 100 to 50.
Or something, right. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So then you got a victory point for every share of stock that you just got. Right. So that's the equivalent of $100.
Well, 50, right? In the model that you just showed. So I just got a victory point for $50. I just lost, for each share, I just lost, say, $50 of investment.
Yeah.
Versus at the end of the game, every $100.
As opposed to, it's only at the end of the game. Right. That makes sense. So thematically, that actually makes sense.
I came out ahead.
Right.
Even though I, quote unquote, lost some liquidity, I came out ahead on the score chart.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was going to take that in a different direction, but that cleared it up.
Cool.
So there's this wonderful nastiness that comes with selling shares.
Oh yeah, I think it's more volatile than an 18xx.
Than many of them because of how hard the share price is depressed when you sell a share. Because when you buy a share, regardless of the amount of shares that you buy at any one time,
In this game.
right, the share value, if you buy 1 or 3 or 2, doesn't matter,
Right.
it's going to go up $5, which is one peg.
One peg.
Whereas for every share that you sell, it goes down 2 for every one. So you can sell up to 3 at any given time. So if you were to, liquidate 3 shares, it just went from, wherever it is, down 6 pegs. Yeah. So, that's $30.
A share. So, I could have cost you 3 victory points, depending on how heavily invested you were.
Absolutely. And I think that's a wonderful thing as far as that nastiness. But it's not so much take that, it's, oh, here, I'm getting out before you can, so you don't get me.
And that's where I'm talking about with the day trading, because I'm looking for, okay, I own these shares of stock, the price went up because I was watching cubes that were going to be turned in and stuff. Wow, I'm going to dump this and get some cash and hurt your investment and your investment, other players, and spend that money on something else because, oh, now Sally's got 3 yellow cubes. Well, shit, I'm going to buy some yellow.
But at the same time, on the flip side, you may want to hold on that stock for the simple fact that maybe it's getting close to splitting, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm going to try and keep it and then try and help raise the share value of that.
But if it's up there in price and looking like it's going to split, and I own 2 and you own 4, I'm selling them.
Sure, I understand, because it hurts me more than it does you, absolutely.
And the split would help you more than it would help me.
And I think we mentioned this a little while ago about how in our last game, the brutality of using church favors and rumors to remove orders from shops. So if I have a guild order.
And the opening bids, too.
Right.
Yeah.
If I have a guild order and you see I have specifically 3 resources, because every guild order is 3 resources, and you might, use one of those rumors that you got from being the gondolieri and be like, oh, no, sir, so sorry.
Yeah.
That shop just now went out of orders.
I apologize for this. But...
but this is going to hurt you more than it does me.
Right.
And that sucks, but it's totally within the spirit of the game.
And in our plays, it's happened. And it's important. And it's economic. But it didn't happen. It's not like half the game. It's not common. You know what I mean?
But it is a legit thing, a tool in your toolbox.
Absolutely, man.
So there are multiple paths to victory, whether you're going to focus on ducats, on cash, stocks, guild orders. I do feel in our plays that some amount of guild orders is going to be imperative to be able to keep up with the Joneses. But it doesn't need to be the end-all, be-all. You can diversify, and I do feel that there are different paths that are available. And when you're going to counter this, I'm going to say that it could be groupthink. It could be that our group specifically, maybe not. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, it's been a
minute. Let's get into it now. Yeah. Right. So sometimes I like to try to break games and stuff. So in some of our plays, I tried some specific things. So for example, I tried one strategy where I did not do any guild hall fulfillment. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're dealt one. So I fulfilled that one. And then I never visited the guild hall again. All I did was buy and sell stock, buy and sell stock. I got housed. I scored 13 points, worst I've ever done. I don't think that focusing purely on stock transactions is a path to victory.
Let me ask you this, not arguing with you, because I've only seen what you've tried to do.
Sure.
That was in a 3-player game. I wonder... yes, it was a 3-player game.
Was it? Yes, it was, yes.
So I'm wondering, in a 5-player game, is that a viable strategy?
I don't know. Good point. Good question.
So I'm just saying that...
So, flip side, though, I did try a strategy where I tried not to buy any stocks other than the one I was dealt. And I soon sold it.
Right.
And focus solely on the guild hall. I did finish second in that, but
you were competitive.
I was competitive, but I think from that limited data set, my conclusion is that the path to victory in this game is to play all aspects of the game, which I like. To win this game, I need to fulfill guild orders. I need to play in the stock market. I cannot do one nor the other exclusively. I must do both to some combination.
I think I agree with that, but I would like to explore that on the on the higher player counts to totally agree with you. However, I will say that I do feel like in a 3 player game that there is some wiggle room as far as how much of one versus the other and can be viable. But again, here's an example. You've played this game, what, like 6, 7, 8 times, whatever. I've played it 4 or 5 times. There's still a lot more to explore here.
Yeah. So the thing I like about my conclusion, be it erroneous or not, about you must play all aspects of the game, is there is no, you go that way, I'll go this way in this game. Players are in competition for everything during the game. It's not like, hey, I'll do fishing and you do mining. I'll see you at the end of the game.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I dig that.
All right, so weirdest moments. There was two weird moments in games that in our sessions that I wanted to call out because I thought they were awesome.
All right. Weird in a good way, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
In one of the 4-player games, and this was a game where you were in a different session, all 4 players hit the North Shipping Office on the same turn. We all dialed North Shipping Office. So the payouts for that stock were awesome, and the docks were overflowing with goods. Prices were depressed as hell. It was kind of crazy. The other one was in the last time you and I and Matt's wife played. Nobody bought Shipping Office stock, and I've never seen that happen before. So just cool stuff.
There's what that tells me is there's lots of options and lots of ways to go about doing the same thing.
Cool.
So as we transition into things that we're not so keen on, I have one that I feel straddles the line that I see both sides of.
Okay. Straddlers.
Yes. Or straddler singular. So the word fiddly comes up. And, okay, the reason this game is notorious or has a notorious reputation of being fiddly is because on the guild boards, there are 3 different pegs. There's one for the amount of resources, the value of the resources. There's one for the value of the shares, and there's another peg for the number of orders.
And there are 5 of those. They're and the wood, so there's 16 pegs in the game.
Right. And every time someone buys, sells, gets rid of, fulfills
a cube comes out of a bag.
Right. One of those pegs, at a minimum, is going to be moving.
One spot.
Right.
Per cube or whatever.
So I understand where people call this extremely fiddly and how some people say this would make an awesome app or an awesome computer game.
A computer game.
I would argue that this makes for an awesome, badass board game. I love that about this game. The reason is for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's completely interactive. People are always engaged. It forces you. It says you're going to sit your ass down, you're going to play this game, and you're going to do nothing else. You are going to pay attention to this game. You are going to pay attention.
That's exactly it.
Number one. Number two, it's table bump friendly. Totally. Okay, you bump it, you know what? It's a peg and a board. Yeah. It ain't moving.
Plus, when you buy more shares of the tailor than me, I can hand you the board.
Right. Okay, you're now the...
Here you go. You get to move those pegs now.
I enjoy the fiddly nature of this game because of what it represents with this dynamic market.
You're going to move the pegs a lot. Your fingers are going to cramp. Well, maybe not that much, but I don't mind it either, man.
You're not hearing me.
Okay.
I didn't say I didn't mind it. I said I like it.
Ew.
I think it's a cool aspect because it forces you to sit down and constantly be engaged with this game the entire length of the game.
I can see where you're going.
From pre-game, when you're having to adjust the market and everything from the cubes that came out of the bag until the very, very end, you are going to be engaged
the pegs
in this
rule.
game. Yes.
I agree.
So
I smell what you're cooking.
However, not everybody's going to see it my way. And
I know.
They are going to not only dislike, but actively just hate that aspect, the fiddly nature.
You know what? I'll move the pegs for you.
Yeah. So
give me all 16. I'll move all 16.
So if fiddly is an issue, stay away from this game. So there's the negative on that aspect.
Okay.
Next one. I'm going to blame that on being sick. The game feels clunky or awkward or quirky at first, but I feel like after repeated plays, it just smooths out and just opens. It blooms like a flower.
Okay. And
the rules get out of the way, and like the sun shines down, and just wow, there is some stuff here.
I'm to the point where I don't really need that indispensable player aid anymore. But occasionally I have to look at it just to make sure. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying, I guess, in that, because that is a physical manifestation of the rules are in my way normally, up to a certain point, and then they'll go away.
Right, and then the game just has so many cool, buttons to press and dials to turn, pun intended, with the actual dial. Yeah, so...
Well, most of my, I don't know, dislikes, maybe that's too strong of a word, I don't know, are really about the random things in the game.
Okay.
I don't... It's weird. I don't not like them, but they still don't sit totally well with me, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, drawing random guild cards when I go to the guild hall. There is a role that lets you, when it's in the game, pick 2 and choose 1. Draw 2 cards and pick 1. That should just be normal. Also, at the beginning of the game, a draft. Let me start with this one, or this one, or this one. I'll draft this one and hand you the next
before you get the cubes out on, or
whatever.
Sure.
Just a little. I mean, and that'd be easy stuff to house rule, just to cut down that randomness, right? Like, hey, do this. The rumors. They're like deer meat. They taste gamey to me.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
it's like,
I do.
Cool. Like, I drew a green one. All right, I can screw with somebody or help myself if I have anything going in green. Stuff like that. The roles are like any game with role selection. People are gonna go, oh, this one's overpowered, that one's over. I generally just ignore all that crap anyway. That's just noise. Because like, hey, then bid for the damn role.
Exactly. Right? That's my point. Everybody has access to this. It's not just one player's going to have this for the whole game.
But some of the roles rather are also deer meat, gamey. Like, hey, when I go to the dock, I get to draw an extra cube out of the bag, or the tax collector. Hey, anytime dividends are paid, I get a free extra dividend. I mean, just some...
You're a tax collector. You're embezzling.
Yeah. Some of it's a little gamey.
All right, so it might be a bit of
gifts
a reach.
Of the game, right?
I got you. But now, on the flip side, just counterpoint, there is the mini expansion of the roles.
Right, there's like 5 more roles or something.
So it adds a considerable number. I don't know if it doubles the amount or whatever. And you can either draft them before the game starts, or you could randomly select them, whatever.
Sure.
Or you can kind of do a theme, with them.
Right. That's what you did on our last game.
And I actually did
cool.
stuff to tie it together just to try something different. And it adds to that variability, and I like having to adjust to, okay, this is out, oh, but that one's not. Okay, how do I work around that? How do I make this work to the best of my ability? So... counterpoint to that, I get what you're saying about the whole deer meat, but at the same time, I wholeheartedly agree with you about the guild orders. That is the one shortcoming about this game that kind of sticks in my craw.
Sure. Easy enough to solve.
I don't know that it is. I don't know that it's as easy as you're making out.
Okay, maybe
because of the fact that throughout the game, if you were drawing multiple guild orders, right? You see how the board's seated. You can look at them and be like, well, that's here, that one's not. Okay, I'll choose the easier. I don't.
Get
you know what I mean? So I feel like that takes away from the game, but I don't know that there's an easy answer to that. That's the one issue. The favors, I get that. That's a little gamey. If you want, play without the favors. That'd be fine. You could do that. That would eliminate that problem. Maybe you shouldn't have to do these things, but the fact is, there is some gaminess in some of these that I agree with. But just wanted to make a counterpoint on that.
Cool.
The last thing that I have is, have I mentioned how much I dislike the board layout?
Yeah. No. Do you not like it? Okay, let's give our summaries on Masters of Venice. Why don't you start, please?
In an episode filled with quirk, this one's high on the list of quirkiness and oddball and just queer games. Even so, as fiddly as it is, and as much as I dislike that common board in the game, every time I play this game, let me go about this a different way.
Okay.
There are a number of games that I find diminishing returns. Like, I really liked it with the first play. I liked it a little bit less every subsequent play.
Right, fair statement.
Masters of Venice, though, is the exact opposite of that. Yeah. Every single game I've played of this, I've liked it a little bit more than the last time I played it.
I remember you saying the first time we were playing in this group, like, you were kind of like not really into it. You're like, I don't know if I really want to play it.
We go through when we review games, a lot of the time it's me picking the game or coming up with an idea or whatever. So I was like, you know what, Tony, what game do you want to review? And you were like, I'd like to bust out Masters of Venice. And I was like, all right, you know what?
Well, look, man, we can't review crap like Forge War anymore.
Stop. But I really was not enthused. Even though after the first time I played it, I recently got a copy in a math trade and all that. But you know what? Thank you, dude. Thank you so much for us getting to play this game as much as we have. Because without us reviewing it for the show, I wouldn't have gotten to the point to where this game absolutely blossoms, and it's
interesting. It's
one of, I would say, it's probably in my top 20 games. Yeah, I like it that much.
Right on, dude.
So yeah, if you're willing to fight through the obtuseness of the rules and the fiddliness that I think is a plus, not a minus.
Right.
Take the time and the $12 that the game costs and go try it. So, for a rating, we rate on a scale of 1 to 6. 1 is Burn It With Fire, 6 is Hall of Fame.
1 is Helios.
4, we start thinking about buying it. 5, we absolutely do. 6 is Hall of Fame, just go buy it. And, in good conscience, I can't give this game anything other than a 5. I think it's that good and that unique and that well-balanced of a heavy economic game. So I am a big, big fan of Masters of Venice.
Oh, that was a really cool summary, actually. Just
bit of a tangent there, but whatever.
No, but I felt what you were saying. That was cool.
All right, so lay it on me.
So my summary is that the Masters of Venice is not a game of elegance, nor is it without chaos. There's quirkiness, rules overhead, hefty dose of fiddliness to go along with all that. All of those things are hallmarks of a game that will be an outcast in the mainstream gamer's safe, warm world. Those folks have taken the blue pill. They wake up in their beds each day believing whatever they want to believe. When you and I created Heavy Cardboard, we took the red pill. We stayed in Wonderland. We wanted to know how deep the rabbit hole goes, and the choice was irrevocable. Game characteristics like these don't bother us here. We understand that in order to get intriguing and uncertain gameplay that makes us work for survival as well as victory, it can be messy sometimes. Is Masters of Venice a great game? Nah. Is it a messy, fiddly, complex, chaotic game with pros and cons? Yes. It does challenge me with intriguing and uncertain gameplay and makes me work for my survival and my victory. I feel like I earn every point. the confluence of turn order, shared actions, and the way those things unwind with the timing of the changes and the prices of the commodities, the share prices, make the fun and interesting nature of the game for me. This game is available. It's very inexpensive. I think it's a good gamer's game, and it plays pretty quickly once you have a play or two under your belt. So look, you're either going to like or dislike this game. But if you're into the same stuff we're into, this is one to try and see where your opinion lands. If you can hear this broadcast, you've taken the red pill. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. And with all apologies to the cast and crew of The Matrix, at least my version of the truth.
Awesome, dude.
I'm gonna give the game I gave it a 4.
Okay.
I gave it a 4. I almost gave it a 5 just based on all the. It's really super awesome, I think, and it's so inexpensive that like you can't not buy it, But I gave it a 4 in the end.
Okay, rock on, dude. That was fun. I hope people enjoyed. Take the time to at least investigate it.
That's the Masters of Venice.
All right, so let's wind this down a little and hit on some stray guild questions that didn't really fit the review.
Cool.
Ironically, throughout all the Ask the Elephant, when we asked, no, not a single Ask the Elephant was for Masters of Venice. Mm-hmm. I found that interesting. Either A, people hate the game, B, they don't know the game, or C, indifferent. So I'm curious for those, because this is not going to be our most popular episode. I'm curious to get the feedback from our listeners on what they think and the reasons for that and what they think now, having listened to it. Okay. So, all right, moving on. My collection is short, unthinky, or heavy fillers. What would be good games that play in, say, 20 or 30 minutes that have some interesting decisions to make? Well, I have 2 off the top of my head, and then you take it from there.
Well,
Arboretum.
Right. It's on my list.
And Aton, or Aton, A-T-O-N.
Right.
It's an abstract that I think there's some decisions in there.
That was
what do you
cool.
got?
Arboretum and Biblios were the 2 on my list.
Okay.
And then just you and I were just brainstorming together here because we don't prepare for the show together.
Right.
We were thinking, what other games like For Sale, Impulse, The Climb? I mean, there's lots, I guess.
Yeah, there's a handful for him to check out. Arboretum would be high on the list, for sure.
Yes. Let's see. You recently sold a lot of Feld games in your auction. Tony, as a self-proclaimed Feld fanboy, what games of Feld did you keep, and why did you get rid of the ones you did?
Yeah.
Well,
I know what ones you kept, but
I am a fanboy still, but somewhat diminished in that capacity. I have been working on a topic for one of our shows one day. I call it the rise and fall of Stefan Feld. In my thoughts, I feel that he peaked as a designer of the games I like, 2009 to 2013. And so I kept Trajan, Macau, Spiekerstadt. I kept Amerigo, but only because my wife said you cannot sell that or else that sucker would have been the hell out of here. Year of the Dragon, Strasbourg, Castles of Burgundy, and Bora Bora. Those are the games I kept that I own of Feld. I sold Luna, Bruges, Aquasphere, Notre Dame, and Rialto. And I think those are all fine games. They're just, with the combination of my tastes and too many games to play and stuff, like they're just not going to hit the table. So let's just let somebody else have fun with them.
I sold La Isla and In the Year of the Dragon.
Now, as Lisa was in La Isla was in
that's just far too light, and
we never played it.
Right. I still like Feld, but I wouldn't say I love him. I'm almost to a point outgrowing a lot of his games. Mm-hmm. They still have a place. My wife and I really enjoy playing Castles of Burgundy, Trajan, Bora Bora, Spiekerstadt, Strasbourg, Macau. All enjoyable, but they're enjoyable, and that's that. So, yeah. What's your position on games using special player powers and similar pre-game arbitrary player differences? You take this one to start.
Well, for me, I think maybe erroneously, I lump games into 2 categories. Category 1, heavy economic games. They tend to be long, mathy, challenging, etc. Category 2, everything else. I am a very simplistic man. I think maybe, is that the equivalent of a game mullet? Business up front, party in the back? I don't know. Anyway, in Category 1, player differences are not often a welcome feature of those kind of games. For me, anyway, I believe that the difference in players should be between the ears and the strategy that they pursue in those games. In Category 2, bring it on. You got variable player powers and special. Bring it on. I think that kind of variability can offer wonderful things. It can be too specific or too beneficial, whatever. But and that sometimes that eliminates the between the ear stuff in those games. But I don't mind, and especially shorter family games. I don't even care if it's balanced. Let's just play it and have fun. And my attitude is kind of like, all right, that was fun. What are we playing next? 18 Ardennes, anybody?
Right. Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. They have their place, but like you said, they have their place.
Right. And they could be awesome.
Right. Argent has them.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed that game. So, yeah, that role selection, it has its place, and I'm fine with that, as long as it knows its place.
Let's see, next question. Even though we all like heavy games, I guess that some games can be too heavy. Where would you draw the line between good heavy and too heavy? Feel free to give examples. Another guild member suggested Mega Civilization may fit that bill. Shoot.
All right, well, let's start with Mega Civ. Not a heavy game, really. The only thing that makes it heavy is the amount of players and the length of time. Same with Civ or Advanced Civ.
Sure.
That's why they're heavy games, is because they take 12 to 15 hours. But to answer your question, where do I draw the line between good heavy and too heavy? I'll let you know when I find it. There is not a Euro that I imagine would ever be too heavy for me. There will be heavy Euros that I just don't like for one reason or another, but none that I find too heavy. There are some war games, however, that just take it too far for me. ASL, possibly some of the big OCS games, the Operational Combat System or series, stuff like Case Blue, which I think is awesome. But, I mean, come on. Who has 2 years to play a game? So I don't... Like, High Frontier, I'm excited to play and try, because that might be...
that might be the one.
That might be as heavy as Euros or, Eklund. I don't know if I can really call it a Euro, but you get the idea. Right. I'm curious to play it and to experience the simulation and see if I enjoy that. And if I do, then okay, then I don't know that there is one.
It's going to be shocking how similar our answers are, because I don't think anything I've ever played is too heavy. I don't know what that would look like, but I'm anxious to find out, perhaps, right? I do think that a game can have too much detail or chrome, and war games are the most guilty of that. And usually that's just, for me, turning a game into a turtle in a sea of peanut butter, because you're trying to figure out how much water's in that dude's canteen, or
ASL or a campaign for North Africa.
That's not heavy. That's chrome, and it's just so I think there could be too much of that in some games, but to me that's unwelcome.
All right, and honestly, this is my favorite question.
It's pretty
Ask
cool.
the Elephant. Youster, one of the designers of Three Kingdoms Redux.
Yes, awesome.
He said, my significant other and I, which I love that he calls her that.
Yes.
We're talking about your podcast over dinner just now. Thanks for thinking of us. We're curious how much time goes into each podcast episode, i.e. researching, recording, editing, etc. Does each of you have a specific task, or does it just depend on who has more time during the build-up to that particular episode? All right. Well, first off, it depends on the episode. Mm-hmm. Like this one took me about 5 hours to prep for, and not including playing the games and everything. That's sitting down at my computer. You and we have come up with an outline a basic format that we follow every regular episode. Mm-hmm. So whenever we do our normal episode, we do the 2 trailers and then the featured review, and sometimes Ask the Elephant, sometimes BGG stuff, whatever around that. But that is our standard show, and it took me 5 hours to prep for this one. I would say anywhere between 4 to 6 hours is normal for me.
Sure.
How about for you?
Agreed. I generally spend about 4 hours prepping for a show ahead of time, jotting down various notes, putting them into our template and crap like that. Some episodes can take longer. The 18XX episode.
That took me 10 to 11 hours to prep for.
There was a lot of work in that. When we get together, like we are right now, it takes us 2 to 3 hours to quote-unquote record the show, because we talk a little bit about some of the things and some coordination beforehand. Then we start recording. Like right now, we're at 2 hours and 12 minutes of recording. Now, the episode won't quite be that long because of editing.
Or a lot of the ums and ahs and all of our cussing and dumb stuff that happens.
And plus, we talk about heavy cardboard business and stuff when we're together, so that's all investment of time. And then editing the sound generally takes...
That's entirely Tony that does that part.
It's usually 3 or 4 hours. It's generally, every minute we talk is 2 minutes of editing for me, just because I have to listen to it and back it up and tweak the sound levels and all kinds of, it's just tedious.
So if you have any issues with sound quality,
That's right.
Blame him.
Talk to me. So
other than I'm the loud guy, so he has to work with that.
So I guess what that really means is like a normal episode could be 10 to 15 hours, depending on what the content is.
After he's done editing, he'll then post it in a draft to our website. And then on Thursdays, which are our release days, the first and third Thursday of every month, I will then, depending on if I have time at work or before work or after work, this takes me upwards of an hour to go in and edit that to make it say what I want, to put in all the links in the show notes and to do all that.
Get it up.
Then to post it to there, post it to Twitter, post it to Facebook, post it to BGG. And then I have to link all the games so that it shows up on the BGG pages. Mm-hmm. And then, to be honest with you, I'm the social media guy. Now, don't get me wrong, Tony has free reign to it too. He's just not on there the majority of the time. It's usually me, and we just agreed that if he's going to take the editing, I'll do that stuff. Plus, I enjoy it, but don't get me wrong, it takes hours of work to promote the show and just to keep our name out there, so to speak, just because the more it is, the better. The more publishers and designers know about us, the better it's going to be for you guys, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would say anywhere between, realistically, 12 to 15 hours total individually is how long we're putting in. I'd say 10 to 15 hours, depending on the length of the show. So that's a long answer to it, but that's about as detailed as we know how to do. So, yeah, that's that.
Last question. When and where will the Heavy Cardboard group get-together be at BGG Con?
Well, glad you asked this, Mike, because honestly, I would have forgotten to mention this, so thank you. Sadly, I'm bummed, probably not as much as you are, that you won't be coming this year, but I do hope next year. So those attending BGG Con, we will be having a Heavy Cardboard gathering on Thursday night of BGG Con from 8 p.m. till about midnight, give or take a little bit, in room 1113. It's on the 11th floor. It's a huge room. It has room for tables for about 50 folks. So hopefully people will come, game, meet other elephants. We'll have giveaways and such, and I hope lots of folks make it.
Before we wrap up the episode, a couple of quick things for you. Number one, I looked back at last September of 2014.
Okay. Of our reviews?
Yes, we reviewed Craftsman and Panamax.
Rock on. Both those are
a hell of a month, right?
Yeah, good episodes. All right.
Craftsman, I've played it several more times since then. The last time I played it was HeavyCon.
Okay, and I've played it once since then.
Okay, but Panamax has not hit the table.
It has not.
And I love it.
I am a big fan of both of those games. However, I think just simple logistics get in our way.
Yeah. Some games can fight through it. Maybe that's what I guess I'm saying. Panamax hasn't fought through it, and Craftsman has. The logjam of games that we play.
Well, because we have to a point, churn and burn, to be able to play a game enough times for an episode. Yeah. It's hard to get back to some of these sometimes, but I do find it interesting that
you hear what I'm saying, though.
Some games make it through, and we find ways and reasons.
So lastly, are there a couple of games that come to your mind? You mentioned one earlier today.
Okay.
I alluded earlier in the episode, that's going to come back.
Oh, that's right.
Are there a couple of games that you're kind of bummed didn't work out well for you?
You first.
Let me give you a minute to think about that.
Okay.
So, like, just over the last year, few months.
Didn't hit expectations?
Yeah.
Okay.
In some degree. Right. So, like, Race to the Rhine, Guns of Gettysburg, Nautica, Spirium, and Vercindas Folk are on my list. Like, I'm actually disappointed that I didn't find as much enjoyment in those games as maybe other folks or whatever, because I really wanted to.
Huh. That's a really good question.
Now, and you mentioned
After the Flood is definitely the most recent.
Right.
But again, I want to look up stuff and make sure it wasn't something that I was missing. God, I hope I was.
Sure.
But actually, two that you mentioned, I would piggyback on, and that's Vercindas Volk and Race to the Rhine. I think both of those. I guess you could say Global Mogul, but to be honest with you, I didn't know if that had high expectations.
Well, I'm certainly hoping it'd be an awesome economic game.
I thought it would be better than it was, and the production. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say after the Flood is the biggie, but I could get on board Race to the Rhine and Vercindas Volk.
Right on. Let's bring this episode 33 to a close. I've had a lot of fun doing it, though, so I'm a little sad about that. But tell folks how to contact us.
I'm glad my voice made it through it, so
did.
that's good. All right, Twitter, @HeavyCardboard, Facebook, Heavy Cardboard, email, regular email, contact @heavycardboard.com. We would love to get your guys' thoughts on this episode. Hit us up on our website, heavycardboard.com, and absolutely, our guild over on BGG, we got 430 or so, give or take, people. Pretty active guild. Mm-hmm. It's guild number 2044. Come in there. We'll give you free geek badges, and hope you guys join the conversation. We'd love to have you.
And thank you to Game Surplus for supporting Heavy Cardboard. www.gamesurplus.com. Check them out. Great inventory, hard to find games, imports. Plus they're special folks.
Yeah, really good people. Check them out. Thanks, Velma.
As evidence of their special nature, remind everybody about the contest.
All right. So you're going to want to email us, contest@heavycardboard.com. Put the subject line Essen and tell us not just your 3 top games that you're looking forward to from Essen, but tell us a little bit about why. Mm-hmm. And next episode, we'll choose one, and we'll give you $40 or a $40 gift certificate from Game Surplus that you guys hopefully can either spend right away or use on one of those games that you're looking forward to. So big thanks to Game Surplus for making that happen.
All right, well, it's time to get out of here. I need to text the wife before I leave. She said, text me. I might want you to go to Sonic and bring me some tots.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
So I may be going to Sonic.
Okay. Grab me a chocolate.
Chocolate malt?
Yeah, chocolate shake, would you?
Sounds good.
Apparently Asher came by to say bye to everybody, too. You hear that thump, thump, thump of his tail?
It's a good dog.
All right, you guys take care. We'll catch you in a couple weeks, and we're going to do an Essen preview post-view, we think.
Games I'm looking forward to for the end of 2015 for me.
Rock on.
Including Essen, right?
Hell yeah. All right, we'll catch y'all in a couple weeks.
Late.